Hello and welcome to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out number 94, which is over Viridian Gate Online, Book 4, Imperial Legion by James A. Hunter. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the book, beautifully done, and need more from the series, but just need to catch up.
100%. I'm glad we're finally getting back to the series. Like we've talked about in previous streams on James A. Hunter's VGO series. It's incredible world series that kept getting recommended to us, and just super excited about all the potential in the series and continuing on. We've talked about how he's really good about collaborating in the universe, and especially in this book where, the Divine Dungeon being like one of our first lit RPGs to get us into the genre and all the potentials for like the dungeon creation and everything, and the character we get to meet in this book who is like the dungeon. Man, I would love to hear more about his story and just like dungeon monster creation in the actual world. And I believe at one point he says that, oh, our boy, was it Jack? He is one of
Yeah.
the first actual people he's talked to since coming to VGO, right? Everything
Yep.
else has just been NPCs or whatever. Um,
Uh, yeah. So I wish more of his story got fleshed out. There's still plenty of books to do so, and it definitely we already kind of knew it between the guy for the victorious empire and
mhm.
Grimjack, how they're essentially the chosen of the Overmind. And
Yes,
so our dungeon
yes.
guy is a chosen for the Overmind, and then our German Alro Carrera, butchered his name, I know, that we stole
Hmm.
the Imperial seal from.
Hmm.
He is now working for the Chinese AI probe for, destroying all the enemies, which, yeah, that was quite a twist for me.
It's really well done how they introduce the Overminds as like deities in VGO, and I appreciate that that storyline is getting a little bit more fleshed out. We touched on a number of things that we could just go down the rabbit hole pretty far on. I could talk all day about the deities and the potentials there. Um, Not to mention just how easy it would be to kind of like over abuse the fact that these are supercomputers, but there still are some limits and that balance of power that is regulated behind the scenes that we're just kind of getting a glimpse of. Um,
Yeah, but sidestep, it seems like whoever the champion of an Overmind has the
mhm,
advantage because we did get quite a
mhm.
few perks. Um, yeah,
It-
but
yeah, but
still,
it's not too far. Um, as far
well,
as like
yeah,
the
yeah. I mean, you
perks go,
couldn't
it's not like,
solo
hey, I
everyone.
hand
You can
you easy
still
God mode, but it is like,
strategize.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. And I wonder how much of that is like, I'd love to learn more about the backstory and what all went into the Overminds, right? Like, so quick review for everybody who it's been a minute since they've read it. Like each of the Overminds, like the AIs kind of governing the game, are these supercomputers, right? And part of what made this project happen wasn't just straight up cache resources. It was, hey, we have a super powerful AI computer like this Chinese anti-nuclear, um, yeah, like military AI. I need to pull up the cheat sheet on all those different pieces.
So I guess this is book 4. And as of now, we have 4 Overminds in action. Not saying that's, directly a one for one, but book 1, we found out about Jack getting introduced to the Overmind, Sophia. And then book 2, we figured out that Osmark or Oswald, I always butcher that. I can't, it starts with an O.
We're sorry, yeah,
Mr.
we're so bad with
Ever
names.
Victorious Empire.
Hmm.
We find out that he's got, I think it's Enyo, and then I don't think we got an addition in book 3, but then come book 4 here, we
We're learning
got,
more and more about them.
yeah, we
Um,
knew from book 1 that there are 7 of them
mhm.
and what they primarily focus on or what they primarily do, but
And you can tell there's a lot of the fantasy roots there because each one of these overminds kind of have their own like responsibilities or elements, right? Like in charge of the quest making system, in charge of destruction and to make sure there's always new content because they're only going to be there forever until wait, what? they can get stabbed by a dagger and not be here forever. One of the things I was going to say earlier is like one of my biggest complaints is with lit RPGs is how short the stories are. They're almost always on the shorter side, and we get maybe like 8 to 12 hours compared to like a chunky fantasy book where you could do like 20 to 30 hours. Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, like the Stormlight Archive, all those beefy epic fantasy books, 30 to 40 hours on Audible, hundreds of pages. And the lit RPGs are just like so quick, yet James A. Hunter manages to do an incredible job in that time where in epic fantasy you get caught up in just like all the little details of the flowers and stop and smell the roses. Yet in this book, how many different subplots did we have there? Right? Because
quite a few.
Right. We had like the big battle was only halfway through. We open up by ambushing in the hills and find out that, hey, there's a bunch of like steampunk stuff in these caravans. What the heck is this for? And oh wait, this ultra in the beginning, sorry. Thank you for the correction there. In the beginning, that happens with the caravans. And then a little bit later, we learn about this mysterious class that he keeps scooping up to make things. Was it like artisan or whatnot?
Yeah, it was
pretty much the builders of these.
builder.
Yeah, we have all of a sudden kind of like this steampunk armor and guns coming into this world. And that's kind of been our thing, right? Like we didn't go military. We went merchant and we rise together type mentality versus just raw military power. But
I'm not gonna say like steampunk was our thing. It was, for me, we made do because we made siege equipment that we broke down and then we were able to transport. Where now for me, the steampunk was done well, came out of left field, and
he has a mechanical dragon.
Normally, I wouldn't like the confliction between like more so fantasy,
right?
And then
flamethrower in one hand. Yeah, well, that's where the genre is, and that's where the rest of them are dealing with it. Our buddy Jack has a hammer, and that's what gave the Imperials the advantage. And then, like right as we're prepping, gonna plan to do the ambush, we get all that prep in there. So there's that subplot. The spiders, our ally, come out of nowhere and nearly attack us. Turns into giving us a power up for the defense and this random quest chain where we meet our dungeon master guy, the necromancer. Because he had necromantic powers, right?
He plays a summoner / healer kind of outside of the dungeon, and he had undead minions. There wasn't a whole lot there, but it was a introduction to the, I can't remember the Overmind's name, where he's like half naked, covered in mud, deer antlers or whatnot, and he's the one in charge of the dungeons, which I was surprised he didn't join us at our round table, but it makes some sense. And then
the dungeon master?
Well, when at the end, when Sophia freezes time and assembles all of our, you are my chosen minion. I'm surprised we didn't get that guy involved. It made some sense because, we're in the middle of this battle and these are the people who can affect it. But at the same time, whoever is supposed to be in charge of all the dungeons is kind of not doing his job very well. And we're going to help him out. But yeah.
Right. They're all getting infected where this random enemy faction that Cutter fears and all this backstory, they used to rule the world. roll up, try to convert players. So now there's like this third faction. We now have a 3-way war when we were just scaling up to prep for our 2-way war. We
Well,
have
and
our
that's what.
skirmish where things are going our way until the Autobots, not Autobots, but until our mechanical steampunk cavalry comes in.
Well,
And
that's.
then when we finally call the retreat, then we lead into it. So, like, again, just like so much happens in this book. We now have a rock, paper, scissors scenario. Are we going to get, what is it, the lizard Spock in book 5, where you think we got 3
There's going to be
factions
more than
going to
that because
war?
there's seven
Mm-hmm.
overminds. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I want to say book one, when we first get into the game, it pretty much says like, hey, are you going to be on Seth Rogg's side? Do this, or are you going to be on the other side? So this random faction war between the ever victorious Empire and Grimjack's whatever alliance is irrelevant. I mean, it's relevant, but not really because we're pretty much on the same side. It's just who wants to control what land. And then the interesting bit how Carrera, or however you say his name, was not put on the leaderboards because he was in a different dimension. And that side tangent got me thinking about Ascend Online's book 1.5, and they have a random thing where it's not a portal system, but it's a differing dimension system. So the
Right.
idea is you go to that dimension, travel inside of it, and then pop out in a different spot in the actual or differing dimension, um, which is kind of what, not really, but happens there because Carrera was leveling up, is now a higher level than Jack, who, is also a perfect counter as of currently and has a very conflicting class skill set, as well as
Not
a Frieza, this isn't even my final form kind of boss
better
trigger.
yet, but he's now possessed by Frieza, where he
Yeah.
want my unlimited power, fuse with me to become the perfect being, and like, why not go golden plus ultra? Um, that fight was pretty intense. We have
Yeah.
all this tension. We've been leading up at the Imperials, we stand for freedom and justice, our boy Flint. Yeah, I'm the baddest MFer, this side of
Or
and
Forge.
he Forge, thank you. He loses to our steampunk mech bots. So like all this tension, the emotional roller coaster, and now here we are fighting side by side after Cutter nearly gets killed just to come back at the clutch. Stabby stabby. Get away, Jack.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of things that I need more information on because we know about Carrera, we know our Jack and all of them, but we know Carrera has like 20 something additional people that could be backing him.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? They're just building up their power base. They're so.
I think they're like part of the Empire.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
they're not
yeah.
like currently involved. And then supposedly we only have one guy who we're going up against, but at the same time, he, as far as I know, it's not like a seal thing. It's more like I can do this ritual, which was beautifully done because we get snippets throughout the book or throughout the other books where we figure out our very first thing when Jack wakes up and he's on or in a cage and the woman gives him the mark of the Matal or whatever that sets him on his quest and unlocks his powers initially. She was on a table of this, the guy who was torturing him and putting doppelgangers, and then we get the gentleman Georgie bit, and we slowly find the two books that have the different names in them, and like it's been building up to this all along as like a subplot, but now it's
He does
switching to
such
the
a great
forefront.
job tying it all in, though.
Yeah.
Like, as much as it seems kind of like random or just so scaled up at this point. We've weaved in book one, right? With what's his name again? Carreras.
I,
Yeah.
sorry,
And
the guy we
the
steal the
book,
faction seal from.
we had a Georgie reference with Cutter and all the backstory there as he plans the
Well,
ambush.
but that's
Did we even
a
cover the ambush yet? Like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
or that's the guy who takes over Carrera or the German or
Hmm.
no Russian cartel drug lord guy. Um, Seth Rogg is the one who took or he was taken out our very first priest that gave us our powers. Was the one who took over Gentleman Georgie and is the one currently taking over the dungeons. So he's amassing a giant army of, endless hordes of resurrections. And that was another thing that was
We
kind of
had that
weird
dungeon
because
crawl too at the end of that.
I
Like, we
was a
covered so
little
much.
like,
You wish we spent more time there?
I do, but it was I don't know, a little too convenient for some parts because the queen shows up with her horde and he's like, "Hey, so I got to bring all of my people with me." And she's like, "Well, what if I leave my horde here so that they can protect this?" And like she totally could have brought her horde, wiped them out, and we wouldn't have had to done anything. But that's irrelevant because it was all about getting us there. And
Well,
then
the thing is, she's an NPC, right? And part of that was the dungeon master. The way it was explained is like he can give her quests or missions, so that's why
Or no, I thought
he.
it was the dungeon AI or Overmind that came to her and said, "Hey, I have a mission for you."
I think you're right.
And
Working through the
then,
dungeon master.
yeah, to complete the mission was to get
Hmm.
someone to,
Jack.
or get Jack to the guy who is a player as a
Hmm.
dungeon. And so when I first heard the guy about being a player in the dungeon, I thought it was going to be a different story. I thought that was the guy who initially, during the trials of VGO, got trapped. Because I could have sworn there's a story about someone who was doing the trials and got, transported into the game, and that's how they knew they could even do it in the first place. So between the end of the world, people, living and dying and or whatever, there's a lot of potential and a lot of different directions.
And it just ties back into it's just more stories that they can write in this universe that we're having so much fun in. Like after we follow this storyline, there's at least 2 to 3 more, right?
I know there's a Firebrand one. I know there's the oh our Vlad one, and I think
Vlad gets his
there's
own story.
yeah, I think
That's
there's like a
awesome.
third spin-off.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot in the world, and yeah, a lot of potential for this one going forward.
The
I'm excited about the
illusionist, the
Overmind,
alchemic weaponeer, the firebrand series. So there's
which
those
is
three.
Abby,
Yeah.
and then I know there's a third one.
The illusionist, the alchemic weaponeer, Vlad, like you said, and then the firebrand series, Vlad. Oh, and then I think there was a healer series recently released, right?
Yeah, the Lich Priest. Oh wait, never mind. That's number 5. Just kidding.
The Heartfire Healer series, 2 books out.
Ah,
Easy God Hand. That's quite a last name. That's an
but yeah,
Overmind last name right there.
and I'm excited to see. It seems like players are being championed from the Overminds, and currently we have 4 out of the 7. And of course, Sophia at the beginning, when she's explaining her brothers and sisters, has the understanding that a lot of them enjoy what they do and don't want to interfere. But what we found out at the end of this one, that you can actually delete and kill people, and the malware blade, it changes the name of the game. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen the time and space Overmind, because that's literally what she does. When Sophia pulls in Jack and then pulls in, oh, our other Overmind and Oswald.
Sure. Yeah.
She freezes time.
And with what we know from just like other series like frame jacking and time dilation, depending on the power of the server, like for all we know, at this point in the timeline, the meteor could have happened 6 hours ago, right? Or even less. Because the only thing limiting them is their perception of it with the processing, because it's all data, right?
True.
I wonder about down the line, like the overminds, there's balance in the world. And again,
Or they were
huge,
supposed to be.
they're
They were
supposed to
also
be.
supposed to be non-sentient, good little robots that were supposed to do
Do what I
their
tell you.
job in a
Yeah.
neat little package.
Yep. Follow the parameters, but anticipate everything. Mwahaha. Uh, a common trope in fantasy series like Dragonlance, uh, it's about balance, and each one of them, there's like a light god and a dark god and a neutral god, and there's order, there's balance. But if one side becomes too powerful, you lose your yin and yang. And then reference your chaos seeds.
Or, well, that's why
Humans are
7 is
just chaos.
stupid.
Uh,
7 can't be even. And currently we
didn't say
have...
even, balance.
Okay, true.
Because there's neutral. And then there's our trained monkeys that we pick up to champion us and give our power. What'd you think about the interaction between the two faction leaders, the Imperials and the Crimson Alliance? Like after everything settled, Jack and I'm going to look up names. Apologies, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to say Osborne.
Osmark.
The guy who...
Robert Osmark. Or Suit. Yep. Close
Osmark.
enough. And Jack. Like, hey, so this is great.
I thought it was a good conversation.
This could be it forever. Yeah. Go ahead.
Because people who want power don't deserve power. People who accept power to do the right thing but don't want it. And we get to see it time and time again. And throughout the series, he stays very true to that mentality. Kind of like when we recruit the dungeon player, and he's like, you really want to join us? We're the underdog, and if we fall, they're going to come after all our allies. And he's like, yeah, because you said that, because you're willing to explain it, you deserve it.
Yeah, it's also important to realize too, with like some of these characters, being a gamer, the avatar you see is not a reflection of the person behind it, right? Like this was some kid in foster care that he took off trying to get to where there was a pod for upload, found a partially broken one, and that's how like VGO saved him, threw him into being a dungeon.
Yeah, and that opens up, or so, two separate side notes there. First side note is typically people play a differing role from their IRL selves.
What are you saying?
Because they want to do something different,
playing cute young females.
In VGO so far, people are playing common roles or similar to their nature because of everything else. Example, Vlad is a alchemic weaponeer, and he was just not in a video game. He was. And so,
I follow
our
you there.
accountant, and there's a lot of like, because our main guy normally rolls a healer,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't. Definitely
Mm-hmm.
not a healer. He's kind of the rip out the squishies or the opposite.
I
Um,
think that's one of the important factors in the difference. Like a lot of times in MMOs where it's temporary, people try different things or place like whatever.
yeah.
But a lot of them take into the fact that, hey, there's real pain here. Because I believe there's
Oh
like an
yeah,
old
they
guildmate, the accountant, who and correct me in the comments if I'm not remembering this right, guys, but he pretty much used to play like a frontline fighter. And he's like, I'm a freaking accountant. I don't want to be in the front getting hit all the time. Like, I much rather, do my support from the back, or better yet, you got a desk job where I can do numbers and logistics. Yeah, that sounds like right up my alley.
well, then he made the comment in that conversation talking about yeah, and my wife didn't want me looking like that or whatever. It was with the orcish.
It, yeah, I still wouldn't be surprised if there's those handful of people that do go something completely different,
Yeah,
right?
completely off the
Um,
wall. And I
Taller, stronger,
they
faster,
uh
smarter.
they explain it in I think book one where the Abby's explaining the like Turing test or whatnot and how none of the or no, I guess that's a separate thing. None of the NPCs would fail the Turing test, but they profile you, and that's why you end up where you end up to get your class and everything.
Well, that's part of what makes the overmind so powerful, right? Like they can't see the future, but they pretty much have everything they need to know
Oh
about
man,
everyone in the game and can, crunch some numbers about probabilities, right?
I'm almost shed a tear right there. You said Overmind, seeing the future, made me think of Life Reset. But we're not
Ooh,
talking about that.
yes, yes. We need to go back and revisit that whole series with that finale. So well done, Shamir Kuznets. Uh, yeah, a lot of fun in the lit RPG space. Before I forget, did it have enough combat for you, Pete?
Yes, and that like right off the bat, where we are it starts off more or less comical where Cutter
Mm-hmm.
is saying like, "Oh hey, this is a waste. They're not coming. Fosmart's so smart. He would have changed it up." And then we get into combat, and we had a new class, and
Mm-hmm.
we like the Divine Dungeon series, Rexus part of, or sorry, I guess that's technically Completionist Chronicle series. Rexus has a monk who is a chiropractor and is portrayed very well. Sidestep back into where we're at for VGO, we have that first moment of combat where we're locked in combat with a monk who doesn't have any armor, is wearing robes, and has more like a sigil power base where it's like, well, we don't really know, and I wish more got fleshed out because I wanna see the ins and outs. But that
Mm-hmm.
combat was very interesting and exciting, as well as like I don't care typically for the political maneuvering, but it stayed true to, hey, if Osmark is pulling this subterfuge and running the same caravans in a little circle, making us think this is what's going on, we're going to do something similar. And it was pretty cut and dry for, hey, this is our conversation. Hey, we're going to get points, and this is why we're going to do what. Um, it it felt a little unsatisfying, the fact that it didn't really matter, but there was a lot of growth and development throughout the characters, and we got to see towards the end where Osmark and Grimjack were like, hey, so this is why I'm doing this is why I'm doing that, and then we've got this cannot enter each other's territories. Well, that says nothing
Without
about,
invitation.
camping out. Like, I've seen people killed for Black Friday shopping because they got ran over, like that's
PvP
completely
servers, dude.
irrelevant,
This
but
this is a PvP server called This Is Our New Life Now. And knowing what kind of trolls there are, you're right. They won't cross their territory, but that doesn't say anything about the first time they cross into um, open territory that they don't get spawn camped.
so it's a truce for now, but there's a lot of potential later. And I enjoyed our dungeon crawl. I enjoyed the finding the new race. I enjoyed, uh, yeah. So there was quite a bit of combat. Yeah, the steampunk battle, the differing traps we had set up, the way it was him leading from the front, but he also had like 4 pre-written messages to go out at different times.
It's smart.
And
It's smart.
yeah, it was well done. The combat was
It
good.
it passed the sniff check for me in a lot of ways. Like, of course, the plot's going to progress how the author wants it to, but is it just too unbelievable, or is it just happening because of the plot? Right. And while we did get like all these nice wins, there was the emotional roller coaster along the way of like, oh no, how are we going to overcome this challenge, this obstacle? We're outnumbered. Hey, mysterious quest, take you away from this, and I'm going to leave you 100 spider mounts to do some work. It's like, well, 100 spider mounts, you say? I guess I could take a vacation. It
And that's just the thing. Like, I
convenient,
don't
yes,
feel like
but
we got any wins, like at all.
what are you
Like,
talking about?
we were set up to
What
stop
about that
the
loot
Imperial
and that
Legion,
XP
and it didn't happen. Like, they're still sitting on our doorstep. Yeah, there's a truce for now, but
for a
that's
month
the common
to
ploy
be
of
potentially reviewed?
with a common enemy will the enemy of the enemy of my enemy is my ally kind of mentality. It's going to give us more, hopefully more insight because just like Osmark, we do not truly understand his power set, and
Except
it
for
could
its
have to.
OP, clearly.
It's the difference between critical hit and taking them out versus death by 1,000 cuts. So I feel like it's more of
Or
a death
stealth
by 1,000
hammer.
cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Jack gets
I
some
feel
nice
like,
XP, and yeah,
and
everybody
he
who follows
got
him along.
his weapon that we still have been holding on from book 1. That was a artifact ranked weapon, upgraded even more, or again.
At the end of the day, Mama Sophia is watching out for him. She's going to make sure stuff happens when he comes across the quest chain. He gets a direct message from her saying, "Hey, you really want to go check that out?"
Don't be a
And
fool.
so,
But
right. Take this epic golden hammer.
I just have so
Don't
many
go alone. Take
questions
this.
in differing directions. So what was it? 1 in 6 people for the initial nanobots download into the game were gonna die. Our malware blade, as of now, is going to corrupt or delete people so that they cannot resurrect.
Did they not get enough
But
storage
a
space? They gotta
partial
get people
success
deleted.
of you're a potato, but not really a potato. You're a
I'm a
overpowered
pickle.
vegetable, where all those memes of this
Pickle's a
is their
vegetable.
server, where it's a bunch of potatoes connected together. Anyway, so this guy survives. He's now controls a dungeon. Or whatever we did to Carrera that was supposed to send him to a different realm didn't really, it wasn't supposed to kill him, which we knew, but it took him to a different realm. And then if you know anything about hardware data recovery, it never you can't delete it. The only way you can get rid of it is to put a screw through it or to shatter the disks because
Yeah,
it can always be recovered. And then I would love a cool technological thing, or advancement or whatever for, oh, what am I thinking?
bit of.
Is it Lord of the Rings where we come off the boat and then we have the horde of like undead that swarm over? I don't know.
There's not really undead. There's orcs.
Nah, I'm thinking
And
like
Lord.
wraiths looking things.
Oh yeah, it's been so
Anyway,
long, dude. We should do a geek out over Lord of the Rings. It's considered a classic.
yeah.
Yeah,
But we lost a lot of people. Good news, none
but
of our
we
main
not like
cast,
not deleted.
or
We
no,
don't
deleted,
know.
deleted.
Well, we don't. Did we get that body count? We just know
We
that it could
didn't we
happen.
didn't get a body count, but we were attacked
The
by
secret's out. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we know that some of them are not going to be coming back. And I don't know, the way it's written, it's as if they are dead. But I would be pleasantly surprised if it wasn't a true death or like a final death, because the way the Sethrog or the people Cutter was
Well,
so afraid of operate is,
some data can get corrupted though, right? Like
yeah.
to where it's not recoverable. And this is supposedly a virus that happens. And we're people are a lot of
Well,
data,
okay, so
right? Like
in that
their
one,
personality, it may not be them, but
I
like
was thinking the way the dungeon guy came about. So if it's corrupted and select functions or select motor skills or cognitive thought or whatever, whatever,
true, true.
so they can't do that, but they could still run a dungeon or become a sentient weapon or, whatever, whatever. There's still potential
Hmm.
or hope.
There's always hope.
Or they could fusion Ha like Carrera and, combine.
I am immortal. But dude, you got goat feet now. Is it worth having goat feet and horns? Maybe.
Sorry,
I could
I
live with the
went off on
horns.
several different tangents in my head. What was the
Yes.
question?
Yes.
You said I am
So
immortal, and I was thinking about the TikTok for the cursing one, which I will not repeat.
so we we'll just talk about it. Maybe other people know our pain with TikTok. We have not been on the platform. We're not big social media people, but for Geek on My Sleeve, like we do a bit of the social media and TikTok. Yes. Yes. Go follow us now on TikTok. Peter has done a couple fun quotes. Going to keep geeking out over there on the platform, but it is such a freaking time sink.
Yeah,
Yeah. What? Need to spend more time checking out the LitRPG TikTok.
there's not a whole lot. I was pleasantly surprised. Side tangent. Alaron Kong has one, or he pops up, and it's
Did you
literally
see
a
he has a
picture
graphic
of
novel
him
now?
as a baby, but then it does like the smush blur thing where it makes it
Mm,
kind of look like his mouth is moving. And yeah,
okay. Okay. Yes. Yes, please do Lord of the Rings. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Should we go all the way back to The Hobbit or start out Lord of the Rings?
that is a good question
Do you go
because,
chronological or do you go
or
published
what
date?
is chronological? Do prequels
It depends on how
count
the
as?
Overmind views time and space. So all just
He's
part of the
definitely
Matrix, right?
been in there because Grim Jack's ability to go into the Shadowverse is big time and space ploy, and then the fast travel, not fast travel, is time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Um, and then where did we leave off at the end of book 4? Pretty
So the end
much.
of book 4, we had Sophia and I'm trying to remember the other Overmind's name. Anyway, we had Grimjack's patron, and we had Osmark's patron, and we know that Carrera, who was trapped in the other dimension, is now the patron for our big bad, who we knew from book 1 to be, the evil guy, who resides in a different dimension, and that's why he didn't show up on the leaderboard, so we don't know what kind of power they have. And then we ended up just barely defeating him with the two of us, and he entered into his secondary boss phase where he,
Not even your final form, you say?
comes a giant tentacle monster, so to speak. Um,
Uh,
we defeat him. And we get, I forget what our second upgrade. Oh, yeah. We got a new talent tree that is
mm-hmm.
specifically for divine stuff,
It uses
which,
divine points, you say?
yeah,
How do I get me some of them divine points, Sophia?
yep. And that is exciting. And yeah, it's going to keep us on the top. Yeah. And so we left off with currently
Do you
we
think
have
the
a month.
Overminds have to roll out like nerf patches at any point? You know what I mean?
I
When the
don't
talent
think
trees get too broken, what thy giveth, I can taketh away.
I'm sure if you lose their favor, you would lose it, but I don't foresee that
I could see
happening
that.
with our current setup.
You lose some
Um,
faction reputation, no
the
longer
only
able to
one who I
access it.
think could lose stuff is Carrera because he's our current I love to hate guy. And with him, he literally has he's the willing, oh, embodiment of our Seth Rog guy. So, yeah, I'm sure he can be upset and be like, screw you guys, I'm going home, and could leave. Yeah.
It's scaled up. We now have the three-way fight, all the Overminds up in our business, freezing time. Our allies of today could be enemies of tomorrow. You could find so many references where allies get left on the battlefield or intentionally maneuvered to where they take the greater losses, right? Like, how are we going to work with these guys? Yeah, we fought off this invading force when we were
Yeah.
just like slaughtering each other, but 15 minutes ago.
There's
Um,
so many directions it
doesn't
could
mean they
go.
can't pull a Sadius, right? Not to mention these blades, some assassins come in the night. Okay, you break the truce, but what happens if you're able to eliminate a lot of key individuals, cripple the whole organization?
So I think it's going to be a good thing for us to not worry about them attacking right now. I hope we get a little bit more dungeon diving because we need to figure out what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see a big power gain. What I'm concerned about is the maneuvering because just because we're on truce and we're not going to enter your territory unless we have express consent, there's
It's
still going to
always
be a lot of
important to get
maneuvering.
consent.
And yeah, and like even if they say, oh, yeah, you can come into our territory, they can still just kill you anyway.
I kind
But
of felt like that was vague. Um, because it just said like the whole faction, right? Like, what stops somebody who has a little bit of faction reputation be like, yeah, you and this invading force, come on over to my house for tea and crumpets, and then like let's overthrow a government, right? Like,
Well,
Um,
so
and
I felt
then
like
they can
yes.
retaliate, but if you're already going
I
to
don't
win,
know if I think the only saving grace, and I'm not 100%, is due to the way it's set up, they can't change hands, so to speak. Like, even if you take out all, there's no win condition. You can't take over their territory. You can kill important people
mm,
and you can spawn camp them. But yeah, I see some interesting maneuvering, but I hope we get more.
do not collect $200. You can't buy Broadway.
Yeah. I see some ish interesting maneuvering there, and then we need to get into more dungeons and doing stuff. Um,
Yeah.
as well as I envision a Captain Planet moment for with our powers combined, we can do something to banish this. We've had Vlad, who saved the day, book 2 and 3 for our or no, I guess it's really 3 for our siege weapons. We had Osmark, the other engineer, be our big, scary guy for book 4 here. And then we have the third one, which is the runic. And if the Sethrog guy is not using runes to convert the people into being, willing sacrifices for the other people to transport over, I would
Hmm.
be surprised. So I find a new guy getting added to our repertoire. I figure he's going to be a runic engineer, which is going to find a way to save our bacon. Um,
Bacon is amazing. We should do everything we can to save our bacon.
was it this one or was it
Nobody
another one?
likes
There's
burnt
a
bacon.
book that was talking about, I don't know, I think that was Life Reset.
No, this book was bacon and coffee.
Okay, yeah,
When our
oh
love
man,
interest is whispering sweet nothings to us, and they're like, "Hey there, Jack. Hey there, baby. I I got I got this magic elixir of life. This darker than dark coffee here for you, and bacon."
yeah, it was
And
first
then
word
she
of
goes and
power in the
eats
second
the
one.
bacon. Anyway, uh, series is a lot of fun. James A. Hunter has definitely become one of my
Powerhouse
favorite.
in the
Yeah,
LitRPG realm.
yeah, he just does such a great job. And gosh, we need to go back and finish Rogue Dungeon.
So I guess honestly, like Rogue Dungeon had a very interesting, unique element to it for
Hmm.
how they got transported, where they were. I, but yeah, this one, I read that one and then I read part of this one and I was like, okay,
Hmm.
this one definitely has grabbed my attention more.
Oh, this is more of the traditional MMO lit RPG feel and just like all its epicness. But for quick reference point, Rogue Dungeon, a lit RPG adventure, is another series by James A. Hunter and, excuse me, Eden Hudson. A lot
Oh,
of
okay,
fun.
it's another collaboration. Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels
You get more of that
more.
inside dungeon feel. Started from the
Yeah, I was
bottom, now
gonna
I'm
say
here.
Dungeon Core.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
definitely a lit RPG, but it's a little more Dungeon Core-esque.
True story. True story. Um, Starting to come up on that time. What else about book 4? There's so many things,
Or
subplots
let
that.
me work through it. So we had the initial taking over the caravan or intercepting it,
Hmm.
where we had an interesting fight scene. We told them, hey, we're not the Imperial um, or the Empire. We're going to let you go. We're going to burn all, or we're going to take all your stuff. Then we
Hmm.
had the subterfuge from Osmark for moving his people in a different way, as well as taking statecraft or military stuff or overworking him, as well as the steampunk or steam powered elements, giving him a leg up or a thing forward into uh trying to switch where we're going to defend and do a interception or I can't think of the word. Anyway, we were planning to attack them before they got to it, sacrifice some people, take
Ambush.
out their siege equipment, ambush
Word of the day
into
brought to you by Geek on My Sleeve. Thanks for hanging with us. Carry on.
into the building up our defenses, and we get the Spider Queen. Couldn't think of her. Loeth, the Orb Weaver, Storm Weaver. Anyway,
I see what you
Loeth.
did there.
Spider Queen giving us a quest, finding out we have a actual used to be human playing as a dungeon, and we get to see a little bit or hear of the Overmind there, do our dungeon dive. Then we go to our big epic battle scene where we get to see more of the I guess I forgot there was an initial sabotage before that where we get the 1v1 for Osmark and Jack, and then we
Yeah.
get another one but in the air, and good old Vlad saves our bacon again with his corrosive grenades.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in almost every chapter of this book, which is just a lot of fun. Go ahead.
One thing that irks me ever so slightly,
Ever
book
so
one,
slightly.
we saved a tree. Okay? We saved a
Of
tree.
course.
We got a brooch saying, hey, I am a friend of trees. Almost every book towards the beginning, he is murdering trees for a
Oh,
palisade, for,
this is
everything.
true.
He is
He does
going
chop a
ham
lot
on
of
all of these
wood.
trees. Granted, I'm sure there's a difference
No wonder the
between,
Ents haven't shown up yet.
yeah,
Like,
to
he's
help us,
chopping them all down.
or it could be like Lord of the Rings where they got to show up for the final big siege, but he is definitely going ham and attacking some trees. Cutter was like, nope, I'm just going to sharpen this over here.
Can we talk about the irony? Our boy named Cutter
Doesn't
and
do any
how
cutting.
yes, yes. He does a lot of like stabby pokey.
Yeah.
But when it comes to cutting or chopping wood, he's got to make sure it's super sharp. It's important to take care of your tools, everybody. Yeah.
But yeah,
Sorry.
so I
Keep
guess we
going.
did a bit with the brooch, getting us into be able to even do the faction quest to get us started, but it hasn't really shown up again since.
Might come back in. He's done a good job tying in other subplots, right?
Yeah, there hasn't been any like purely abandoned arcs yet for me, where some
I
other
can
people,
respect with
if you're
authors.
listening,
Mm-hmm.
Alaron Kong, The
Cough,
Land,
cough.
there is a handful, not saying they've been abandoned, but you could incorporate them.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Ooh, shiny. Let's go play over here. Wait, what?
Oh,
What
I
about
mean, like,
what about
literally,
it?
book one, we find a magical map that has a quest marker on it. Granted, we knew it was
You
out
got an
there. We knew
M&M
we had to level up, but
magical map.
yeah, that was
There's
book
the map.
one. We're
There's the
on
map.
book 9 now. Or 8's out, 9's working on.
Yeah. Peter's talking about The Land, one of his favorite lit RPGs, but even our favorites have things that how'd you word it? Slightly inconvenience,
Or well,
irk you,
it's
irritate.
yeah.
Yeah. Carry on. We were going through what all happened. We have our spider.
So we had the big or well, we got the spider, we figured out about, and so yeah, another Overmind who is in charge of the dungeons, who are currently being taken over by our Seth Rog guy, allowing his evil ancient entities that can't pass on, which is not resurrection like the normies or the humans, but is an element that essentially could be part of NPC life, where I'm pretty sure it's more regional or with their story arc base. But
Hmm.
it leaves me to hope and believe that this malware blade business is not going to be the end. This malware blade business is going to do stuff, but not do stuff, as well as I could also accept a slight detour back into reality just to have that rich SOB who decided to hang out in the bunker but had enough technical knowledge and know-how to set up a program that when they die, but didn't die, instead of corrupting, it just puts it onto a different server for backup. And then he's like, oh, hey, it looks like this is full. Let me plug it in and put it back. But bow,
Come to this
bow.
different
Yeah,
utopia
something,
world.
something
Now
else.
experience VGO expansion slot on server. Uh, yeah,
Well,
Order
not even that,
66.
like just to bring them back kind of deal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
Or,
many questions, so much
yeah.
fan craft theory. Just again, think about life reset and how like humans were used to like come up with ideas and do like research and all those pieces. Imagine having all these individuals going and like working their way up to steampunk uh mech warrior siege machines. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. A
Um,
lot of potential.
Still up there as one of your top recommends, VGO
Yeah,
series.
I enjoy it. It
Is
is
it newbie
good
friendly
because
enough?
it has multiple flavors, and it's not, I can't say it sticks in one. And so the main plot line keeps it moving, as well as, for example, book one is the apocalypse is upon us. We are all gonna die, pulls at your heartstrings. Just kidding, we survived. Now we're in our safe haven of magical fantasy epic powers. Not really, because some secret Illuminati beepity beep going down. So what we thought was safe is no longer safe, but we get a win, and then we unlock our class, which lets us know you can be the government. You can set up your own town and do it. So, okay, we got hope. I
All you
can
need
run
is a
my own
faction
government.
seal.
I can do everything. And then I'm trying to remember, book two is primarily like, yeah, we can be our own government. Just kidding. They've got a bigger stick. But we pull through, and that's more like the political maneuvering one. And then book three, beautiful. Probably my top one was a mega quest line from the Overmine, which had several different stages that just built up and was beautifully done until we get to the final spot where we're supposed to throw the ring in Mount Doom, but or we're supposed to take the ring and become the one ring holder, but
To
instead
rule them all.
Sam's the real hero. Frodo doesn't do anything. It's a whiny little beep. But then we
Frodo
end
gets
up throwing
carried.
the ring in Mount Doom, freeing the spirits, and getting extra super secret powers. Into book four, where just kidding, that guy with the bigger stick is still coming at us, and we're trying to figure out how to play the underdog and not play his game, because in a direct 1v1, our army versus your army, he has a bigger army. But if we
We're
play hit and
smarter.
run tactics and other things going on,
Hmm.
and then just kidding, you think that's a big stick. Look at this big stick, and you thought this guy was dealt with.
You brought sticks. This dude brought guns to this fight. Like, he's
Yep.
not playing around.
So yeah, it's got a little bit of everything for everybody. Um, yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Definitely want to cycle back, continue the series. Would love to hear from you guys if you want us to do side series. And if there's a specific side series you'd recommend we start before another one, since there's what, 3, 4 at this point.
He has a recommended reading order, but it's whatever.
It is whatever. So many different ways to read a book. Yeah. Final thoughts or time to talk shop about what we're doing next week?
I
You did
think we're good for next week.
okay. You did a great job summarizing up to this point, going into book 5. But next Sunday, Geek Out number 95, Arsenal, Artorian Archives, Dennis Vanderkerken and Dakota Kraut. I think we referenced the Divine Dungeon at least a couple times in this stream, how it's what kind of got us into LitRPG, having a lot of fun. Our favorite Sunshine and Love Pillow Mage. Remind
Yep.
me, Pete, I think this book we're
So
finally go ahead.
or at least I have not read this book yet, but from the man, the myth, the legend, Dennis Vanderkerken himself, book 1 through 3 were before or separate from the Divine Dungeon series in the same universe. Book 4 is when we get the overlap. 4, 5, and 6, I want to say, are overlap in Sunshine and Love Mage at in the Divine Dungeon universe, and then 7 and beyond are going to be a part of the Completionist Chronicle series. So yeah. And with that being said, I think that tree he's laying under is the one at Cal's core. Could be wrong. Yeah.
I think it is. I'm really looking forward to this series or this part of the series. Long overdue. Um, yeah. And then typically we like to talk about the following week. I don't have any graphics up, but going to be continuing the second series and the Lost Free Fleet, doing a read along with a couple friends. Do my best to put links below over on Rajathon's Discord, one of the many read alongs he's doing. One of my favorite series. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm sucker for sci-fi. That will be 4 p.m. Also try to throw a link for the playlist to get current with that. So I want to say this is our maybe like 7th or 8th stream doing this with
So
these
you got
guys.
through the original Lost Fleet series, and now you're on the second arc.
Yeah. We are passionate about people reading and love this little corner of the internet. Everyone we've met along the way where we can geek out and talk about books with them, whether it be The Lost Fleet or our latest favorite lit RPG, VGO, The Divine Dungeon. Yes, it's epic fantasy in all its glory, but there's just so much you can take away from it. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today during the live stream. Um, keep the conversation going in the comments below, and then also over on our Discord server. Love to geek out with you guys. Keep tossing us those book recommendations too. Really appreciate that, Jay. Definitely going to check it out.
Alrighty. thank you for joining us and hope to geek out with you here soon. Bye.
Bye.